On August 1st, the Kremlin gave up political prisoners, journalists and human rights activists, a total of 16 people who'd been held in Russian prisons and pre-trial detention centers for its 10 citizens linked to Russian intelligence, including those convicted of contract killings and convicted in the United States, Germany, Slovenia, Norway and Poland. Among them are former representatives of Alexei Navalny, headquarters Lilia Chansheva and Ksenia Fadeva, artist Sasha Skochelenko, human rights activist Oleg Orlov, politician Ilya Yashin, and journalist Vladimir Kara-Murza. The exchange took place in Ankara, Turkey.
And now, their brutal ordeal is over, and they're free. Moments ago, the families and I were able to speak to them on the telephone from the Oval Office. They're out of Russia. Earlier today, they were flown to Turkey, and soon they'll be wheels up on their way home to see their families. This is an incredible relief for all the family members gathered here. It's a relief to the friends and colleagues all across the country who've been praying for this day for a long time. The deal that made this possible was a feat of diplomacy and friendship.
The exchange lists also include a journalist Alsu Kumasheva, who has dual citizenship, US and Russian, and who was detained in Russia in June 2023 on charges of allegedly disseminating false information about the Russian army, as well as Americans Paul Whelan and Ivan Gershkovich, convicted of espionage in Russia.
Russian authorities claim that Gershkovich was gathering classified information for American intelligence, but the Kremlin is accused of detaining several US citizens to be used as bargaining chips in a prisoner swap. Putin has hinted that Gershkovich could be swapped for a Russian assassin in German custody.
Russia has indeed included, among others, the former Federal Security Service Special Forces officer Vadim Krasikov, who was sentenced to life imprisonment in Germany 2 years ago. He was sentenced for the murder of a Chechen field commander, Georgian citizen Zelimkhan Kangushvili, in Berlin. Prisoners, defenders and journalists began to talk about the Kremlin preparing to exchange political prisoners after a number of convicts were transferred from the colonies for unknown reasons. On July 30th, Putin signed 7 secret decrees, which were brought to the attention of Important Stories publication. According to their information, this could have been pardons of political prisoners with their subsequent exchange. And the Slovenian TV channel number 1 reported on the evening of July 31st that in coming hours an exchange would take place between Russia, the United States, Germany and Belarus. According to the publication, 2 Russian spies, Artyom and Anna Dulcevi, were also expelled from the country.
The situation, frankly speaking, is phenomenal. Some Russian citizens are being exchanged for others. Well, maybe there is an occasional foreigner too. The very fact of trading Russian citizens looks, well, to put it mildly, very bad. It is hard to imagine that Americans would exchange their own for their own. But the logic here is quite obvious. The regime's worst enemy has always been and still remains the people of Russia. The hatred towards them is such that any citizen of Russia can be considered an enemy at any time. Anatoly Nesmiyan, Russian political scientist on Telegram.
Turkey has become a mediator and the exchange of political prisoners between 7 countries, and the exchange itself has become the largest in the last 40 years. According to Verstka sources, the negotiations have been ongoing for a long time, but have entered the final stage literally in the last few weeks.
In general, prisoners swap, especially for opposition leaders in Russia, are in the Kremlin's interest. Surprisingly, this is a common tactic. The Kremlin is trying to push people out. Navalny may have been an exception, although to some extent they were trying to push him out as well. But Navalny aside, the Kremlin is adamant that there is a clear distinction between oppositionists and immigrants. And for them, once you get out, once you leave, you are no longer a danger.
According to human rights activists, there are still between 700 to 1,000 people in Russian prisons who have been charged under political articles. Reported by Natalia Hutak, UATV News.